fish, wild fish. These aren't like stocked reservoirs. They're wild runs of coho and what was the other fish? Forget the name of it now, but
the suckerfish.
Yeah, the suckerfish, which are very important to the native subsistence food supply when they go for the fish. But they haven't caught it for decades. So I want to know how close we are to the extinction of these species, which extinction is going on at a massive scale now in the world. People just kind of don't care about it, what's happening in the wildlife and animals. I do. And I like to talk about it. I also care about what's going on in our own lives here in Portland. And we have a situation where we're now under the state guidance that allows people who are fully vaccinated to wear a mask indoors in public settings where vaccination status is checked. If vaccination status isn't checked, masks remain required. So private businesses can choose to continue with the previous mask requirements or forego that for the vaccination status check. Got it? That's where we're at now in Multnomah County, which is low risk. This is from the Oregon Health Authority, which is governing how masks, distances, and requirements are being enforced by businesses.
Can I interrupt you for a moment?
Yes.
We had for some reason, our live video stream was streaming audio, not video. But anybody who's on our live audio stream at our website, listening at TalkCast PDX, they didn't notice a thing. All right. So
thing about what?
They heard everything, but for some reason, I don't know why, and I'm checking into it. The video said it started, but it wasn't showing up. So now it's there, and I welcome all of our viewers, but I don't know what happened there.
You mean we lost the video?
Yeah, we lost the video.
Or it didn't start?
Yeah, it didn't start. It said it was going. I'm watching it say it's going, but it wasn't going. So when I went to check Facebook, I apologize to everybody.
So this is only on Facebook Live, right?
It's on Facebook Live, YouTube, Twitch, and Periscope/Twitter. But for some reason, the video didn't fire off. I don't know why, but the audio has been working fine this whole time. So.
Yeah, welcome to our world of digital media. I mean,
it happens sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, there's more bullshit that goes on in this digital media than I've ever witnessed in my life. Hey, let's start a podcast studio called TalkCast PDX, and we'll do video and audio. How easy is that?
Well, the original idea was just audio, and we were like, shit, no problem.
Yeah, we're radio guys.
And then you add the video, and then it's like this series of problems left and right. But we had a little issue. We're okay now. But the people listening on our live audio stream they didn't notice any difference. So
yeah,
that's great.
So we still take calls now too.
Yep,
live.
Calls.
And if you're watching now in the video, we will flash it on the screen.
It's there now.
503-234-0762.
And just remind people to go to the Apple App Store and the Google App Store and download the app, and you can listen to the show live whenever, when it's on. And
from your mobile phone or in your car.
Yeah, it's great.
That's a great feat. Talk radio, right, is so limited to a frequency, and it's amazing what you can do. All cars come with Bluetooth connections. Anybody can listen to anything. They have an Apple CarPlay?
Yeah, my phone syncs up as soon as I sit down in the car.
So nice. you have an Apple CarPlay in your car?
Yeah.
So that app came with the car in the console?
Yeah, so when I put my phone in the cradle, I just bring up the TalkCast PDX app and hit play, and it's playing through my speakers. It's great. It's wonderful.
I didn't know Apple got in on that, too. I thought it was just Bluetooth connection in cars.
It is a Bluetooth connection.
I know, but they are specifically built in to the system.
Yeah.
What else is built into the system?
Oh, there's like weather. There's all kinds of stuff.
What about Google? Does Google automatically come up in the system? Is there a Google button?
I can use Google Maps through my phone. It's really easy.
But you don't have it in the system of the car.
No, but the phone's connected to the dash, so I can see everything that's on my phone on
the
dash.
but Apple is actually in the console, in the interface. It has its own. It came built in. They put it in before the car was being manufactured. They got in there.
Apple CarPlay is the app that pops up on your that you can install on your car. So.
Oh, you installed it yourself?
I believe so.
All right. It wasn't integrated into the car.
I let my 16-year-olds hook it up. I don't have time for that. I just want to get in and drive. Go.
All right, let me get back to the mask thing in Multnomah County now.
Everybody.
So
Sorry.
this is the deal. Did you know this, Justin? Okay, so when you go into it's always changing every week. I mean, I figure we're at 70% fully vaccinated people in Multnomah County. I could look it up. Maybe you could look it up while I'm talking about this, Justin. I keep trying to stay on this data from the OHA, Oregon Health Authority. So I go into this bar the other day just to have a beer. And I asked, hey, do we still have to... Let me preface this. I drove around Central Oregon, Grant County and Lake County, and these counties down in the very conservative area of Portland, of Oregon. And they have little signs on some of the places, if you're vaccinated, if you're fully vaccinated, you don't need to wear a mask. It doesn't say we're going to check if you're fully vaccinated with your certificate that you get when you're fully vaccinated. They just let people walk in. People working weren't wearing masks in a grocery store. In the bars and restaurants, the servers weren't wearing masks. Everybody was walking in without masks. This was what it was like throughout Central Oregon, wherever I went, for 2 days during Memorial Day weekend. I come back to Portland, and I figure the same thing's going on, right? Because this is when I first realized that, I saw the sign. If you're fully vaccinated on the grocery store, you don't need to wear a mask. I was like, oh, that was the first I'd heard that we've gone to that level of limitations being lifted. So I get back to Portland. I go into a bar, and I'm like, so do I need to wear my mask? I can take it off, right? No. Everybody still needs to wear their masks. We were told by the state that we could check vaccinations, check their certificates, but we're not going to do that. So we're just asking people to always wear their masks until they get their beer, and then they can sit down and take it off. I'm like, we're over 70% fully vaccinated at this point in the game. But my real issue came up with, that's an invasion of my privacy. These are my medical records. There's this thing called the HIPAA law. And then one of the owners, I think it was him and his son, said, oh, the HIPAA law doesn't apply to this. I'm like, why shouldn't it apply? It's a medical record. That's my personal medical record. Why should you have the right to ask me to show things like that? I said, when I brought up an extreme case, I said, when the HIV was out and AIDS was a massive epidemic in the country, people weren't asking people to show an ID saying they got tested for AIDS and didn't have it. There was paranoia and panic about people having AIDS, and you could breathe on people and get it, or somebody could get droplets.
Yeah.
So I was like, we didn't go to those extremes back then because it was an invasion of privacy. So why isn't this an invasion of privacy? Oh, the kid got pissed off at me. The bartender's, I think he was the son of the owner. I'm tired of this bullshit.
You're telling us, hey. I was just looking at the Multnomah County update on their website. May 24th, they updated it. It said, if you are fully vaccinated, if you are considered fully vaccinated, it's been 2 weeks since your final dose, you're not required to wear a mask unless you are in a setting where the owner or operator continues to enforce the use of masks, using public transportation, ages 2 and up, in schools, hospitals, clinics, homeless shelters, youth and adult correctional facilities. Then it says if you're unvaccinated, masks are required in Oregon for everyone age 5 and older. If using public transportation in all indoor public spaces, and the OHA strongly recommends that individuals who are unvaccinated, who are at the risk of severe COVID-19, continue to wear a face covering.
What's our data? How many are fully vaccinated in Multnomah County? Do you have the...
I'm looking for that.
Yes. I mean, it was at 61% 2 weeks ago. I'm assuming I'm guessing it's 70% now. But here's my point. Isn't that invasion of privacy? I don't think private businesses should ever ask for medical information on an individual ever, no matter what. You're out of line. And for the state to say that's okay, they're out of line. It's an invasion of privacy. It's government interference in my life, in private businesses, asking for information that is none of their goddamn business. And when I brought this point up repeatedly with these private business owners at this bar, they essentially told me, either you can leave or stop talking about it. I said, well, you said, what he said to me that ticked me off and got me going was, the guy, when I first asked, you want to look at, you're not going to You're going to require me to wear masks, and you want to look at my certificate saying I'm vaccinated? I said, you have that right? He says, we're a private business. We can do whatever we want. Ha ha ha! Really? Oh, is that how it works in America today? Is that the same private business that could do everything they want? I wanted to say this, but I didn't go this far. Geez, there was a time when private businesses down south said every black person couldn't sit at a certain place where white people sat because they were a private business. Did that make them right? Could they really do that legally? Now they can't because we have a thing called civil rights laws. Private businesses can't do whatever they want. They have to work within the boundaries of state and federal laws. And my constitutional protections are coming into play here. I feel like my personal constitutional rights are continuously getting infringed upon by government overreach, and private businesses starting to feel this sense of power of control that they can enforce any kind of law against you when you walk through their doors. It's a misconception. It's bad democracy, and it's an infringement of our personal rights. No, a private business doesn't have the right to do anything they want when you walk through their door. And when I stood up for myself, and I said, you said, when we got back into this, I had my beer, I went back to the discussion. That's when his father came over, and I said, you said you have the right to do anything you want as a private business. Oh, I never said that. I'm like, you certainly did. And that's what really gets me going. Like, we went into a coffee shop yesterday, me and this young videographer, and he wasn't wearing his mask, and the guy, here's the go again, the guy says to him, you got to be wearing a mask. As a matter of fact, he says, well, I don't have one. Then you leave right now. He says, I want you to leave right now. This is exactly how we talk to him. This is how people are treating customers as you walk through the doors of their businesses. This is the point they've gotten to where they feel so. Before the pandemic, you would never have had that kind of treatment. Oh, you've got bare feet. Get out right now. No, people wouldn't talk to you like that. Now they're either, it's the sense of power, I think, first and foremost, but it's bad business. So he left. I ordered his coffee, and then I talked to the guy, and I've been doing this for 18 years, and I got to tell you, I'm tired of serving people. He says, I'm closing in October. 18 years of doing, I'm going to open up a silk screening operation. I have to deal with less people.
I was like, geez, hurry up then. Don't let the door hit you in the ass, man.
It's like, man, if you don't want to be in business and you want to treat customers like this, then get the hell out of the business. Because you're in the customer service business. If you don't want to be in it, you don't need to mistreat people while you're doing it and wait. Just a hostile. He ended up giving us a free cup of coffee, but I guess the pandemic has worn down business owners too, and because they're not only business owners, they're law enforcement owners of businesses now. They have to enforce the law of what the pandemic regulations dictate. But they can do so in a more positive, customer-friendly environment. Can they not? Or are they just so aggravated by it all that they choose not to anymore, and they become ornery? As I told them, you're just an ornery business owner now, huh? I don't know. And meanwhile, like in Florida, no mask mandate in the entire state. Oregon, mask mandate, unless you can prove you got certified, which, again, I say is an infringement on our constitutional rights and our medical protection under HIPAA. There is one guy who stood up against this type of policy. Senate Republican leader Fred Girard, Republican, said, quote, in this article it was on the KDRV.com website, quote, vaccine passports are completely contrary to Oregonians' sense of privacy. Hear, hear. That's me saying that. In a democracy, he says, quote, having to present proper paperwork to engage in everyday activities is a complete violation of public trust and an invasion of privacy. This kind of dictatorial control over the everyday lives of Oregonians must stop. The governor should immediately rescind this misguided edict and trust Oregonians. End quote. And that's perfectly said. Look, I'm not a Republican. I'm a centrist, as my friend Patty told me the other day, who I did a talk show with. Says, Ken, you're a centrist. And I am a centrist because sometimes I lean the Democratic way. Sometimes when somebody like Senator Girard speaks out intelligently about a situation that is now unfolding, and this governor of our state is more, she doesn't give a rat's ass about personal rights and privacy. Governor Kate Brown. But he does, and he just stated it eloquently and pointedly. And you've got one part of the state in Central Oregon that is completely... I said to the bartender, I said, you know, I just drove through Central Oregon. Nobody's asking you to wear masks when you walk in. Nobody mentions it, and nobody asks for a certification. Well, they're doing it, but they're doing it against the law. So they're not enforcing it in the entire central region of the state. Yet in Multnomah County and Portland, you have to give up your personal freedoms, your personal privacy to get into a bar, a grocery store, or wherever, and it's mandated to wear a mask. Do we have the data yet on, did you get you didn't get the Multnomah County? Let me look.
I can't seem to find it.
I'm really curious where we're at with how long is this going to go on for? Lift the limitations. I told them, we're over 70% fully vaccinated, I'm sure. I said, are we going to wait for 100% before we put masks on, take the mask mandate off and not require proof that you've been vaccinated? We're never going to get to 100%. We'll be lucky to get to 80 at max. There's always going to be that 20 percentile that don't want to get vaccinated. That doesn't mean you hold us all hostage until you try to get to that level. The governor said 70% to get into. How about our freedoms? When can we have our freedom back? When can we have our privacy returned? I can't believe I even have to talk as though we have to fight for this. Are we in America? Or are we in communist China and Russia? Because right now it is dictatorial control of our lives. And I'm friggin' tired of it. I'm tired of being treated like a damn machine, not a human. Aren't you? Haven't you had enough of this? We're safe. We're out of the pandemic. I'm certain that they say once you're fully vaccinated, the chance of getting COVID is highly unlikely, let alone being able to spread it. That's even more unlikely. God, I'm fed up. You know, the business owners say they're fed up. How do you think the common citizen feels? We're fed up. We're being pushed around like... I'd like somebody, when you walk through a business, says, hey, welcome. What can I do for you? Not, you need to wear your mask and let me see identification and certification that you've been vaccinated. Without the tone, please. Thank you. I don't know, man. If you have an opinion, you're welcome to share it. 503-234-0762. And COVID data. I'm going to look it up for Multnomah County. I'm really curious where we're at right now. I should have done this earlier, but I was a little lax today. Getting ready. Here we go. All right, here we go. Let's see. Why this? Okay. All right, Multnomah County.
Quiet in here.
I'm trying to find the damn... All right, well, let's go to Oregon and find out. So we're going to be talking to in an interview. Oh, I am in Oregon. Okay. So now I can just go to... let's see, in the state, we're down. Everything's down data-wise, But this is May 9th. May 16th. This isn't helping me any. I don't know if we can get the accurate data anymore from Multnomah County. I mean, all right. I mean, I'm clicking on it. I guess that's it. I did have it. All right, now it's out of there. I mean, this stat thing from this is the New York Times, I guess, providing this. Clackamas County. Where did now I just lost Multnomah County. I had it. All right, I'm getting back to Multnomah, but it's not bringing it up when I click on it. Okay, so the New York Times data thing is not. My phone signal's not very good. Do we have our guest on the line at 9:30? We got a guest coming on. We're going to talk about the drought in Klamath County and the battle that's going on, the war for getting water or protecting fish. These are the two things that the Klamath tribe is fighting for: the protection of the fish and the fishery. The drought is so bad, they're shutting off water channels to farms. But when I hear about extinction, and when I hear we're going to lose fish forever, wild runs, that's something I always get concerned about. It's not just concern, it's a tragedy. It's catastrophic. A catastrophic loss to lose an entire species of fish that have been on this planet for millions of years. So now we're facing that in south central Oregon and the California northern area. So talking to me on the show is senior fisheries biologist of the Klamath tribe, Alex Goya, and he's on the line with me now. Alex, welcome to Citizen Smith.
Oh, thank you very much. Happy to be here.
And we could just get his levels up a little too. All right, Alex.
I think it's on his end. He's cranked all the way up.
Okay, very good. Alex, so I talked to Clayton Dumont on Wednesday from the Klamath tribes. I'm sure you talked to him as well. And we got into the overall view of the fisheries facing a collapse in the Klamath Falls area. And you're a fisheries biologist. The thing I'm trying to nail down here is, first of all, what species are you most concerned about?
Sure. So we have two endemic fish species here, about 2% of Oregon's freshwater fish species, the Lost River sucker and the short-nosed sucker. In the Klamath language name, that is the Chwam and the Koptu, respectively. They only exist in the Upper Klamath Basin, nowhere else in the world, and they are quickly progressing towards extinction. There are only about 25,000 Lost River suckers left, and only about 3,400 of the short-nosed suckers.
These have been a traditional fishery for the native tribe over the history.
They have. Some of the oldest archaeological records indicate the tribes have been here for 15,000 plus years. And throughout that history, they were able to harvest these fish sustainably. And unfortunately, with the development of Western civilization, and primarily agriculture, these populations of fish have essentially cratered. They've crashed.
It's a big fish. I'm looking at a picture. I showed the photo up on the camera, the Lost River suckers. It looks like a catfish.
Yeah, it's sort of a similar biology. They're a bottom-feeding fish. They were historically the cleaners of the ecosystem. So they absorbed all that material on the bottom of the lakes and rivers and kept the ecosystem in balance. The Lost River sucker reaches about 32 inches in length, around 15 pounds, and the short-nosed sucker reaches about 18 inches or so, about 4 or 5 pounds.
Big fish.
Yeah, very, very big fish, very unique.
And they keep the lake bed clean, and riverbed.
Correct. Yeah. So their job. Every animal in nature has a job, and their job was to absorb all those nutrients that existed in the river and the lake. Primarily, the nutrient we're concerned here about is phosphorus, which occurs naturally in relatively high abundance in our geology. and prior to development, these fish would have served as a sink for a lot of these nutrients.
And the fishery hasn't been open to. You can't actually catch these fish. I remember Clayton saying 1986. It's
Yep.
been.
Yep, 1986 is when the tribes stopped fishing for them voluntarily in order to protect the resource, and they were formally listed on the Endangered Species Act in 1988. The vast majority of these fish, the ones that exist today, were born between 1991 and 1993, so they're all very, very old, very tired. And unfortunately, the vast majority of the juvenile fish that are born each year are killed by the water quality in Upper Klamath Lake. And so we haven't had any young fish survive for a very, very long time. The only saving grace here is that they are very long-lived. The Lost River sucker, or chwam, can get up to 50 years of age, and the short nose can be about 30 years, and they're quickly approaching that later part of their lifespan.
Are you saying though that there are no newborn fish being hatched?
We very, very, very rarely find younger fish amongst the older fish in the population. So each year the fish come up the rivers, the Williamson River here in Chiloquin, and they spawn, and they produce larval fish that then drift down to the lake. And unfortunately, when the algae population in the lake dies in the fall, these fish succumb to the poor water quality.
So when you lose, well, the clock is ticking, and you've got to do something. Do you see any solution? I remember Clayton mentioning raising. I mean, you can raise catfish in ponds.
Yep.
Can we raise the suckerfish new populations in ponds?
We can. We have tens of thousands of these fish in captivity. That's not the direction we want to go. We want to see nature function as a complete cycle. However, right now we're at the point where we're having to raise fish in ponds in an artificial environment, raise them up to a point where they're tough enough to handle the water quality issues, and then we can release them. Again, a very artificial process, and not what the tribes wants to be doing, but it's necessary to prevent extinction.
So how have the releases been going? Have they survived?
The U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service has released many thousands of them. It's a very large lake, so we're not entirely sure how many have survived. There's been a few detections of individuals. However, it doesn't look very promising that you could just release a few thousand and be able to bolster the population. It's going to require many, many more individuals, unfortunately.
So what's your opinion? Are we going to lose the species? Is it going to go extinct? You don't sound too optimistic.
Well, so when I first started working with these fish 5 years ago, there were 20,000 of the short-nosed suckers left, and now there's 3,400, and it's been a continuous downward spiral since about 2009 or so. I'm optimistic that we can keep the species on the planet. However, without massive repair of the environment here and improvements in water quality, I have my doubts that they're going to exist in nature in the long term.
What would the tipping point, what would be the end date, in your opinion, that we lose the species entirely from the wild population?
Projections for short nose in Upper Klamath Lake are maybe 5 years or so, and around 15 years for the Lost River sucker.
How long have these fish existed on the planet in this condition that they are right now in that ecosystem?
How long have they existed as a species?
Yeah.
So generally speaking, species tend to last around 1 million years, and historically Upper Klamath Lake was part of Lake Modoc, that existed up until about 3 million years ago. So, we could reasonably assume 500,000 plus to a million years plus in terms of their being around.
Yeah. Well, doesn't take long for human beings to screw things up, does it?
No, it doesn't. Yeah,
Takes the Earth millions of years to develop things, then they keep going for millions of years, and then human beings get involved, and we wipe them out in 50 years.
Right. Yep. And after 100 years, we went from probably millions and millions of fish that have been around forever, dealing with things like volcanoes erupting, earthquakes, anything you could imagine they can handle. But 100 years worth of ill thought out agriculture has pretty well done them in.
So what do we need to do to fix the agricultural problem and the other ecosystem problems that you mentioned?
Sure. So our primary issue is the phosphorus in that naturally occurs in the environment. Prior to cattle ranching and agriculture, a lot of this phosphorus was held onto by the plants that grow next to the river systems and around the lake. And when cattle ranching was brought in, cattle were and still are allowed complete free rein to destroy the vegetation that surrounds the riverbanks. When that happens, this sediment flows into Upper Klamath Lake that fuels algae blooms that result in the death of the young fish. So Oregon Department of Agriculture has rules that say you need to allow this vegetation to grow. Unfortunately, no one really follows the regulations here. So we need ranching practices to change.
What can't the ranchers just put a fence a certain distance away from the riverbeds and just protect 10 feet maybe? I don't know. What do you need? How much distance do you need to protect the river edge?
Generally speaking, it would be great if we had 30 to 50 feet of riverbank, so that if we do get a good water year, any overland runoff is filtered by that. And then by having, say, 30 to 50 feet, if you have flood events, that flood water isn't going to erode the soil. So yes, fencing would be fantastic. And in addition, there were a large number of wetlands that surrounded Upper Klamath Lake, and those wetlands acted as filters to capture and sequester phosphorus and keep it from resulting in these algae blooms. Having functional wetlands again would be ideal. So that the analogy I use is it's the filter of the aquarium, right? So if you have a nice, beautiful aquarium and you take the filter out, the water quality is going to decline. That's what those wetlands did for Upper Klamath Lake. And those wetlands also served as nursery grounds for juvenile fish as well. So the juvenile fish that enter the lake don't really have much of a place to go to be sheltered and to go through their early life stages.
How do you restore wetlands?
That is a difficult part of Upper Klamath Lake because the wetlands have subsided, which means they've shrank in elevation. So if we were to just add water to these wetlands, we would have pretty much mostly open water, more lake environment. So that's a more difficult engineering problem to bring those wetlands back up to the elevation they should be. However, if you have ones that are relatively intact and haven't shrank in elevation, then simply adding water, removing the agricultural impact and adding water back. Most often there's a seed bank in wetland soils, and that vegetation will start to grow.
Have you got any response from the Oregon U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service or whoever's in charge? How about the Wetlands Division of the state? Have they talked to you about working this out?
We have gotten a little bit of traction with the Oregon Department of Agriculture to reduce some of the water pumping that goes on. Since the wetlands are now below lake level, they're constantly receiving water. We've gotten a lot of that pump-off water, we call it, to be reduced. And then Oregon Department of Transportation is actually building a constructed wetland as mitigation for some work they're doing, and we'll be raising fish in that wetland as well. So there's a little bit. However, there's tens of thousands of acres of wetlands that need to be restored.
So if you were to prognosticate, where do you think things are going to head? Is there any hope?
There's hope if people care. Again, this is 2% of Oregon's native fish species that is quickly going away, and we need people to have concern for the resource, and we need agriculture to follow the rules that are already in place, and do it willingly and voluntarily.
Because there's no enforcement that'll get it done?
No, there's very little enforcement unless there's a complaint put in, which unfortunately we have had to put in complaints about lack of agriculture following the rules, which is not the direction we want to go. This should be something that people do because it's the right thing to do.
Yeah, it's called neighbors being good to neighbors, and looking out for each other, and
Correct.
looking out for the environment that you all survive on.
And even if you there isn't a financial value, a monetary value for these fish, it should be looked at as the tribe's values them. Therefore, I should care, right?
And it's also an example, if you could succeed in replenishing the wetlands, reviving the fishery or the fish species that we're talking about, it shows that humanity can rebound from the mistakes of the past and rebuild ecosystems.
Oh, absolutely. This is a very, very fixable thing. Nature is absolutely amazing at healing itself if the human pressures are removed.
And we're facing this in many ecosystems around the country and the world, where we've degraded the natural world for our own personal profit, and now people are returning to trying to restore the original ecosystem. And it's being accomplished, but not in enough places. And it's going to be an ongoing issue for every country in the world. In the Everglades, they've been dealing with it for decades now, trying to replenish the wetlands of the Everglades. And agriculture, again, being an issue, overdevelopment. So from one side of the country to another side of the country, the same issue is being addressed in some respects, and the challenges are being faced.
Yep, my hope is eventually we'll reach the point where we don't let this get down to the 5-alarm fire state, and it's a panicky mess at the end trying to preserve the species.
I think you're in a panicky mess now.
It feels like it, yeah. It feels very much like it's the very end, and we're trying to close the barn door after the horse is gone.
I've heard that expression before. Yeah, same issue came when I was up in Alaska in the Turnagain Arm. It's an inlet from Cook Inlet, and there's a species of beluga whale there that are very unique to that area. And when I first was up there reporting on it in the late 1990s, 1998. The beluga whale population was like 1,000 or 1,200. Now it's down to 300 and something.
Yep.
They addressed the subsistence hunting that was the primary reason for its decline too late. They waited till it got to a population base where it's probably going to be extinct because they can't have enough calves to rebuild the population. And that's the way we seem to operate with. You could just use that one little example of how we humans operate living on this planet with other species of animals. We wait till they get to the panic point of no return, and then it's too late.
Yep, it's almost a universal thing that we do. It would probably be far less expensive if we didn't let it get to this point. So now as a society, we're having to dump an unbelievable amount of money in order to preserve the remnants of what's left for many species, rather than being proactive and preserving them while they're still healthy and abundant.
Like I say, if you guys can fix it, we can fix anything. It seems that it could be the blueprint of success on how to restore an environment and species.
Yep.
So we can either be one or the other. We can be, hey, this is what you can't do and how we fail, or this is how success happens with ecological recovery and rebounding from what mankind destroyed. And that's where Oregon's at with your situation down there in the Klamath Falls area and the suckerfish. Doesn't sound like a great fish, but integral to the ecosystem and health of an entire community, both human and wildlife. So good luck. I mean, I'm going to go down there and check it out. I hope we can stay in touch on if anything develops and you succeed, let me know.
Yep, absolutely. I'd be happy to give you a tour of the basin.
Thank you, Alex Goya, Senior Fisheries Biologist, member of the Klamath Tribe, today on Citizens Myth.
Thank you very much.
And that does it for today's show. Environmental talk. It's not the most stimulating thing to hear, but it needs to be discussed more, and I'm happy to do so, especially in Oregon. It's a lot of wild land, or at least semi-wild, and it needs to be talked about because there's a lot of challenges facing this state for its ecological recoveries. Have a great day. Have a great weekend. I'll talk to you on Monday.